When 11-year-old Marcus Webb taped a handwritten sign to his lemonade stand outside a biker bar in rural Tennessee that read, "Help my sister," in shaky letters underneath the words, "Lemonade 25 cents," he didn't know that the president of the Iron Angels MC would be the first person to read it, or that within 20 minutes, 300 bikers would mobilize for the largest civilian search operation that small town had ever witnessed, proving that sometimes the most unlikely heroes are the ones who show up when a desperate child has nowhere else to turn and every second counts. The Lucky Wheel Bar sat on the outskirts of Crossville, Tennessee, one of those places that looked exactly like what it was, a biker-friendly establishment where the Iron Angels MC had been holding their Saturday afternoon meetings for the past 15 years. It was late July, the kind of oppressive southern heat where the air felt thick enough to chew, and the cicadas screamed from the trees like they were competing with the rumble of motorcycle engines. Jackson Bull Garrison pulled his Road King into the gravel lot at 2 in the afternoon, grateful for the shade of the massive oak trees that surrounded the bar. He was 48 years old, president of the Iron Angels MC Tennessee chapter, a man whose size matched his road name, 6'4" and 280 pounds of muscle going soft around the edges, but still capable of commanding respect through sheer presence alone. His salt and pepper beard was braided at the chin, and his leather vest bore patches from 20 years of riding, military service pins from 2 tours in Iraq, and the kind of weathered appearance that came from a life lived outside the margins of polite society. The Iron Angels ran clean. No drugs, no guns, no criminal activity that would bring heat from law enforcement. They were known throughout Tennessee as the club that showed up when disaster struck, that organized toy runs for children's hospitals, that escorted funeral processions for fallen veterans, and that treated their patches with the kind of honor that made other clubs nod with respect. Bull was early for the meeting, which was his habit as president, and as he killed his engine, he noticed something unusual. A card table had been set up under one of the oak trees about 30 feet from the bar's entrance, covered with a checkered tablecloth that had seen better days. On the table sat a plastic pitcher of what appeared to be lemonade, some paper cups, and a handmade sign propped against the pitcher. But it was what sat behind the table that caught Bull's attention and held it. A boy, maybe 11 or 12 years old, African-American with close-cropped hair and eyes that were red-rimmed from crying. He wore a faded Marvel t-shirt that was too big for his thin frame, basketball shorts with grass stains, and sneakers that were coming apart at the seams. His small hands gripped the edge of the table like he was holding on for dear life, and his whole body vibrated with barely contained panic. Bull had 3 kids of his own, all grown now, and he'd spent enough years around children through the club's charity work to know what fear looked like. This kid was terrified. Bull walked over, his boots crunching on gravel, and the boy's head snapped up. For a moment their eyes met, and Bull saw something that made his old combat instincts flare. This wasn't a kid trying to earn some summer money. This was a child in crisis who'd set up a lemonade stand outside a biker bar because he was desperate and had run out of options. Bull looked at the sign, really looked at it, and felt his blood run cold. The top half said lemonade 25 cents in neat block letters that had probably been written by the boy's mother or a teacher. But underneath, in smaller, shakier handwriting that slanted across the cardboard like it had been added in frantic haste, were 3 words that changed everything. "Help my sister." Bull stopped 3 feet from the table. His voice came out gentler than his appearance suggested. "Son, what's your name?" The boy's voice was barely above a whisper. "Marcus. Marcus Webb." "Marcus, I'm Bull. I'm the president of the motorcycle club that meets here." He gestured at the sign. "You want to tell me what's going on with your sister?" The boy's face crumpled, tears spilling down his cheeks. "She's gone. My sister Kayla is gone, and nobody's looking for her, and I don't know what to do." Bull pulled out one of the plastic chairs the bar kept stacked outside and sat down, bringing himself closer to the boy's eye level despite his size, making it an awkward maneuver. "Okay, Marcus, I need you to take a breath and tell me what happened. Start from the beginning." Marcus wiped his face with his sleeve, his small chest heaving. "We were playing in the woods behind our trailer. Me and Kayla and our friend Deshawn. We were building a fort. Mom was at work. She works double shifts at the truck stop. Our grandma was supposed to be watching. us, but she fell asleep on the couch. He paused, gulping air. Kayla said she saw something, like a deer or something, and she went to look. We told her not to go too far, but she didn't listen. And then we couldn't find her. We looked everywhere, and we called her name, and she didn't answer. When was this, Marcus? This morning. Like 8 o'clock this morning. Me and Deshawn looked for an hour, and then we went and told Grandma, and she called Mom, and Mom came home and called the police. Bull felt his stomach drop. If the girl had been missing since 8 in the morning, that was 6 hours already. 6 hours in Tennessee summer heat. 6 hours for a child to get lost deeper in the woods or worse. So the police are looking for her now? Marcus's face twisted with frustration and anger. They came and they wrote stuff down and they said they'd send someone out, but it's been hours and nobody's doing anything. The officer said she probably just wandered off and she'll come home when she gets hungry. But Kayla's only 7 and she gets scared easy, and what if she's hurt? What if she fell, or what if someone took her? His voice rose with each question, panic overwhelming him. Mom's out looking, but she's by herself and the woods are so big and I wanted to help. But she made me stay home with Grandma, and I can't just sit there doing nothing. So I took the lemonade stuff Mom bought yesterday, and I came here because I heard the bikers meet here on Saturdays. And I thought maybe, his voice broke, maybe someone would help. Bull looked at this kid who'd set up a lemonade stand outside a biker bar not to make money but as a desperate plea for help, who'd added those 3 words to his sign because he didn't know what else to do, whose 7-year-old sister had been missing for 6 hours while law enforcement treated it as a non-emergency. Where are these woods, Marcus? Off County Road 40, behind the Shady Pines trailer park. That's where we live. Bull stood up, his jaw set, his mind already running through logistics. Marcus, I'm going to help you. My club is going to help you. But I need you to do something for me. I need you to stay right here at this table. And when my brothers start arriving, I need you to tell them exactly what you told me. Can you do that? Marcus nodded, fresh tears streaming down his face. You're really going to help find Kayla? Yeah, kid. We're really going to help. Bull pulled out his phone and started making calls. The first call went to Snake, the club's vice president. Get every brother you can reach to the Lucky Wheel right now. We got a missing 7-year-old girl, been gone 6 hours, and local PD isn't treating it seriously. We're organizing a search. The second call went to Reaper, the sergeant-at-arms. Bring every piece of search equipment we have. Flashlights, first aid kits, rope, water. We're going into the woods. The third call went to the Crossville Police Department. This is Jackson Garrison, president of the Iron Angels. MC, I'm calling about a missing child report filed this morning. Kayla Webb, 7 years old, missing from the Shady Pines area since approximately 8 a.m. I want to know what resources you have deployed, and I want to know now. The desk sergeant on the other end sounded annoyed. Sir, we have the report and we're following standard protocol for a juvenile walkaway. An officer will be doing a neighborhood canvass this evening. This evening? Bull's voice could have cut steel. That child has been missing for 6 hours in this heat. Every minute that passes reduces the probability of finding her alive, and you're telling me you're planning a canvass this evening? Sir, I understand your concern, but we have limited resources and most juvenile runaways return on their own within 24 hours. She's 7 years old. She didn't run away. She's lost in the woods. And if your department doesn't have the resources to find her, then the Iron Angels MC is mobilizing our own search operation starting right now. Bull hung up before the sergeant could respond. Over the next 15 minutes, motorcycles started arriving, first in 1s and 2s, then in groups of 5 and 10, then in a steady stream that turned the Lucky Wheel parking lot into a sea of leather and chrome. Word had spread through the Iron Angels network like wildfire. Missing kid. 7 years old, local PD dragging their feet, club mobilizing for search and rescue. They came from Crossville, from Cookville, from Nashville, and Knoxville, and Chattanooga. Every brother within 2 hours riding distance who could drop what they were doing and respond. They came because that's what the Iron Angels did. They showed up when someone needed help, and they didn't ask questions about whether it was their business or their problem. By the time the count hit 150 bikers, Marcus was standing on top of the card table, telling his story to a crowd of leather-vested men and women who listened with the kind of focused intensity usually reserved for mission briefings. His voice shook, but he got through it, describing the woods, the fort they'd been building, the direction Kayla had gone, how long they'd searched before getting help. Bull stood beside the table, his hand on Marcus's shoulder, and when the boy finished talking, Bull addressed the assembled crowd. "Brothers and sisters, we got a 7-year-old girl who's been missing since 8 a.m. in the woods off County Road 40. Local PD has decided this isn't urgent enough to deploy resources. That's their choice. Our choice is different. We're going to find this child, and we're going to bring her home safe." He pointed at different members. "Snake, you're coordinating Search Grid Alpha. Take 50 riders and start at the trailer park. Work your way north. Reaper, you got Grid Beta, 50 riders working south from the county road. Wrench, you're Grid Charlie. Work the eastern perimeter. I'll take Grid Delta and work west." Bull looked at the rest of the assembled bikers. "Everyone else? You're on logistics and support. We need water stations, medical staging, communication relay. Chains, you coordinate with local fire and EMS. Let them know we're in the field. Joker, you're on liaison with Crossville PD whether they like it or not." He checked his watch. "It's 2:35 p.m. We've already lost 6 hours. Every minute counts. Let's move." The Iron Angels mobilized with military precision, the result of having many former service members in their ranks and years of organizing large-scale events. Motorcycles roared to life and formed convoys, heading toward County Road 40. Support vehicles, trucks and vans belonging to members loaded up with supplies and followed. Bull looked down at Marcus. "You did good, kid. You asked for help and we're here. Now I need you to come with me so you can show us exactly where you and your sister were playing. Can I ride on your motorcycle?" Bull smiled. "Yeah, kid. You can ride on my motorcycle." By the time Bull's Road King pulled into the Shady Pines trailer park with Marcus holding tight to his waist, the place looked like a military operation had descended. Motorcycles lined both sides of County Road 40, chrome glinting in the afternoon sun. Bikers were organizing into search teams, distributing equipment, spreading out topographical maps on truck hoods. A woman came running out of one of the trailers, mid-30s, thin to the point of gaunt, wearing a Waffle House uniform with tears streaming down her face. "Marcus, where have you been? I told you to stay with Grandma." Marcus jumped off the bike. "Mom, I got help. I got the bikers to help find Kayla." The woman, Shanice Webb, looked at the sea of leather-vested men and women spreading out across the area, her expression shifting from confusion to desperate hope. "You all came to help find my baby?" Bull walked over, extending his hand. "Ma'am, I'm Jackson Garrison, president of the Iron Angels MC. Your son set up a lemonade stand outside our meeting place asking for help. We're here to find your daughter." Shanice's legs gave out and she sat down hard on the trailer steps, her whole body shaking with sobs. The police said she probably just wandered off. They said to wait. But I know my baby. She wouldn't stay gone this long unless something was wrong. "We believe you," Bull said, "and we're not waiting. We have 300 people organizing a grid search right now. But I need you to tell me everything you can about Kayla. What she was wearing, any medical conditions, places she likes to go, anything that might help us find her." Shanice wiped her face and stood up, pulling herself together with visible effort. She's wearing pink shorts and a white t-shirt with a unicorn on it. She has braids with pink beads. She's small for 7, maybe 45 pounds. She's scared of the dark and she doesn't like loud noises. She has asthma, but her inhaler is in her room. She didn't take it with her. Bull's jaw tightened. How severe is the asthma? Bad enough that she needs the inhaler when she gets upset or if she runs too much. Without it, if she has an attack, she could. Shanice couldn't finish. "We'll find her," Bull said with a certainty he didn't entirely feel. "Marcus, show me where you were building the fort." Marcus led Bull and a team of 20 bikers into the woods behind the trailer park, following a faint path that wound through thick Tennessee forest. The temperature dropped slightly under the tree canopy, but the humidity was oppressive, the air thick and still. They reached a small clearing where a makeshift fort of sticks and branches leaned against a fallen log. "This is where we were," Marcus said, "and Kayla went that way." He pointed east, toward denser forest. She said she saw something move and she wanted to check it out. Bull pulled out his radio. "All teams, we have a starting point. Missing child was last seen heading east from the fort location. She's been gone 7 hours now, possibly suffering from asthma without medication. Spread out in a line formation, 20 feet between searchers, and move slow. We're looking for a small child in pink shorts and white shirt, and we're listening for crying or calls for help. The search began in earnest. 300 bikers spread out across several square miles of Tennessee forest, moving in coordinated search grids, calling Kayla's name, looking for any sign of a small child. The sound of 300 voices calling the same name echoed through the woods like a prayer. Bull stayed with Marcus, letting the boy lead him along the paths they'd explored that morning. The kid remembered every detail, every tree where they'd planned to build, every landmark they'd used. He was trying to think like his sister, to guess where a 7-year-old girl might wander. "She likes creeks," Marcus said suddenly. "She likes to look for tadpoles and minnows. Is there a creek near here?" Bull checked his topographical map. "There's a stream about half a mile east, feeds into the Obed River, eventually." "That's where she'd go," Marcus said with certainty. If she heard water, she'd follow it. Bull radioed the information to all teams. "We're shifting focus to the stream east of the fort location. Reaper, take your team and follow the waterway north. I'm going south with my team." They moved through the forest, pushing through underbrush, climbing over fallen trees, the terrain getting rougher as they approached the stream. Bull kept one hand on Marcus's shoulder, keeping the boy close, not wanting to lose another child in these woods. The stream, when they reached it, was more of a creek, maybe 15 feet wide and shallow enough to see the rocky bottom. Bull looked both ways, trying to decide which direction a lost child might wander. "South," Marcus said. "She'd go south because that's downhill and easier to walk." Bull trusted the kid's instinct. His team of 20 spread out along both banks of the creek and started moving south, calling Kayla's name, searching the banks for any sign of her. They'd been searching for maybe 20 minutes when one of the bikers, a woman named Angel, called out, "I got something. Over here." Bull and Marcus ran to where Angel was kneeling beside the creek. She pointed to a small footprint in the mud at the water's edge, child-sized, fresh enough that it hadn't filled with water yet. "That's her shoe," Marcus said immediately, pointing at the tread pattern. "She has pink sneakers with that pattern." "That's Kayla's footprint." Bull radioed the find to all teams. "We have a confirmed track heading south along the stream. All units converge on this location and spread out from here." They moved faster now, energized by the first real evidence that they were on the right track. More footprints appeared in the mud, small and erratic, showing where a child had walked along the bank, sometimes crossing the shallow water, sometimes climbing over rocks. Then Bull heard it. Faint, barely audible over the sound of the creek and the cicadas, but unmistakable. A child crying. "Everyone stop," Bull commanded, his voice carrying authority that made every biker freeze. "Listen." In the sudden silence, they all heard it. Weak, distant, but definitely a child's voice calling for help. Bull started running, crashing through underbrush toward the sound, Marcus right behind him, the rest of the team following. The crying got louder, more desperate, and then Bull saw her. Kayla Webb was sitting in the creek itself, water up to her waist, her back against a large rock. Her white unicorn shirt was torn and muddy, her pink shorts soaked, her braids with their pink beads tangled with leaves and debris. Her face was streaked with tears and dirt, and her small chest was heaving with the kind of labored breathing that made Bull's heart sink. She was having an asthma attack. Bull splashed into the creek, moving as fast as his bulk would allow. "Kayla, sweetheart, I'm here to help. Your brother Marcus is here." Marcus pushed past Bull and threw his arms around his sister. Kayla, it's okay. We found you. You're safe." Kayla tried to speak but couldn't get enough air, her breathing coming in harsh wheezes. Bull scooped her up out of the water, her small body alarmingly light, and carried her to the bank. Angel was already on the radio calling for the medical team. "We need an inhaler here now," Bull barked into his own radio. 7-year-old female, severe asthma attack, respiratory distress. Chains, one of the bikers who'd been a combat medic in Afghanistan, appeared within seconds. He assessed Kayla quickly, his hands gentle but efficient. "She's in bad shape. We need that inhaler, or we need to get her to an ambulance fast." "I'll run back to the trailer," Marcus said. "I can get her inhaler." Bull looked at Snake, his vice president. "You're the fastest runner. Go with Marcus, get that inhaler, and get back here in under 10 minutes or we're carrying her out." Snake took off at a sprint with Marcus right behind him, both disappearing into the forest. Bull sat down on the bank, holding Kayla in his arms, keeping her upright to help her breathe. "It's okay, sweetheart. You're safe now. Your mama's waiting for you. Your brother got us to help find you. You're going to be just fine." Kayla's eyes were wide with fear, her small hands clutching at Bull's vest, and he could feel each labored breath she struggled to take. Around them, dozens of bikers had converged on their location, forming a protective circle, all of these hardened men and women watching a tiny girl fight for air. "Talk to her," Angel said quietly to Bull. "Keep her calm. Panic makes it worse." Bull had sung lullabies to his own children decades ago, and the words came back to him now. He started singing, his deep voice rumbling through his chest where Kayla's head rested, an old country song about sunshine and home. Other bikers joined in, their voices rough but sincere, filling the Tennessee forest with an impromptu choir of motorcycle club, members singing to a dying child. 8 minutes later, Snake came crashing back through the underbrush, Marcus right behind him, the boy holding an inhaler above his head like a trophy. Bull grabbed it and held it to Kayla's lips. "Breathe in, sweetheart, nice and slow." Kayla took a puff, then another, and slowly, agonizingly slowly, her breathing began to ease. The wheezing lessened, her chest stopped heaving quite so desperately, and color started returning to her face. Bull felt tears running down his own face and didn't bother to wipe them away. Around him, bikers who'd seen combat and death and horror were crying openly as this 7-year-old girl took her first easy breath in hours. The EMTs arrived 15 minutes later, having fought their way through the forest, following the coordinates Bull's team had provided. They checked Kayla over, got her on oxygen, and declared her stable enough to transport. But when they tried to take her from Bull's arms, Kayla wrapped her small arms around his neck and wouldn't let go. "I want the motorcycle man to carry me," she whispered, her voice hoarse. Bull looked at the EMTs, who shrugged. "If you can make it back to the ambulance with her, we'll walk alongside and monitor her." So Bull carried Kayla Webb out of those woods, this massive biker president with a tiny 7-year-old girl clinging to his neck, surrounded by 300 iron angels who dropped everything to search for a child they'd never met because her brother had asked for help. When they emerged from the forest into the trailer park, Shanice Webb saw them and ran, her screams of relief echoing across the lot. Kayla reached for her mother and the two collapsed together in a heap of tears and prayers. And thank gods. The Crossville police showed up about 10 minutes later, 3 cruisers and a sergeant who looked distinctly uncomfortable at the sight of 300 bikers who'd accomplished what his department had dismissed as non-urgent. Bull walked over to meet him. "Sergeant, we found the missing child. She's being transported to Cumberland Medical Center for treatment of asthma and dehydration. I'll expect a full report on why this case wasn't treated as an emergency from the start." The sergeant opened his mouth to respond, then looked at the sea of bikers behind Bull and apparently thought better of it. "I'll pass your concerns up the chain of command." "You do that." Marcus appeared at Bull's side, looking up at this massive man who'd believed him when no one else would. "Thank you for helping find my sister. Thank you for listening to me." Bull knelt down, bringing himself to eye level with the boy. "You saved your sister's life today, Marcus. You didn't give up, you asked for help, and you kept trying until someone listened. That's courage. That's the kind of man you're growing into. Can I come to your meetings sometimes, at the Lucky Wheel? I want to learn to be like you guys." Bull smiled. "I think we can arrange that. You're honorary. Iron Angels now, you and your sister both. That means you've got 300 brothers and sisters watching out for you." The story of Marcus and his lemonade stand spread through Tennessee like wildfire. Local news picked it up, then regional, then national. The image of the handwritten sign with "Help My Sister" scrawled beneath lemonade, 25 cents, became a symbol of childhood desperation and adult responsibility. The Crossville Police Department implemented new protocols for missing children cases, designating them all as immediate priority regardless of initial assessment. The sergeant who dismissed Kayla's case as a juvenile runaway was quietly reassigned. The Iron Angels MC started the Webb Family Fund, using donations from the viral news coverage to help Shanice get reliable transportation, to move the family to a safer neighborhood, to ensure both kids had what they needed for school. Marcus's lemonade stand became permanent outside the Lucky Wheel, operated by the club on weekends, with all proceeds going to missing children organizations. The original sign hung in the clubhouse, preserved behind glass, a reminder of why they wore their patches and what it meant to be the kind of people who showed up when someone asked for help. 2 years later, when Marcus turned 13, the Iron Angels threw him a birthday party at the Lucky Wheel. Kayla, now 9 and healthy, sang happy birthday surrounded by dozens of bikers who treated both kids like royalty. Bull gave Marcus a gift, a leather vest, youth-sized but real, with an Iron Angels prospect patch on the back. "You're too young to prospect officially," Bull said. "But when you turn 18, if you still want it, you've got a place with us. You've already proven you have the heart for it." Marcus wore that vest every day, and when people asked about it, he told the story of the day his sister went missing, of how he'd set up a lemonade stand outside a biker bar because he didn't know what else to do, of how 300 strangers had mobilized to save someone they had never met because a desperate kid had asked for help. If you've ever driven past a lemonade stand and wondered if you should stop, if you've ever seen a child who looked like they might need help but convinced yourself it wasn't your business, Marcus's story is your answer. Sometimes the smallest acts of paying attention, of taking a child seriously, of showing up when someone asks for help, can mean the difference between tragedy and miracle. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that children in crisis often don't know how to ask for help in conventional ways, that desperate pleas can come in unexpected forms, and that sometimes the most heroic thing you can do is see someone asking and choose to answer. Tell us in the comments, have you ever helped a child who was desperately trying to signal distress? Have you taught the children in your life that asking for help is brave, not weak, your willingness to pay? Attention and act matters, because 300 bikers proved that when a child asks for help, the right answer is always to show up and do everything in your power to make it right.